Welcome everyone to the Flux Dev Meeting for November 30th, 2023. We have a pretty sparse agenda today, but if anyone has anything else they'd like to talk about that's not on the agenda, let us know or just go ahead and add it. The only thing on the agenda right now, other than the typical business of the week, is Flux plus CD events. So I understand this was discussed at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we're looking to hear about an update now. Adam, would you like to lead the discussion?
Yep. So yeah, as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, we brought up Flux CD events at the meeting. It seemed to be received quite well. We're just implementing a receiver and a provider of both of them for CD events integration, and the receiver seems to be fairly well received anyway. There wasn't really any much to talk about there. But the provider was a bit more difficult, as the actual CD event that's sent out by the provider needs to be decided on, and we decided we'd do kind of a mapping scenario. So different Flux events trigger different CD events to be sent out. So yeah, we just wanted to come back and mention that we have a few thoughts on mappings. So a big thought on the mapping is that Flux events are pretty customizable. There's not really like a list per se of Flux events, the same way there would be a CD events list. So it's hard to create a mapping. So we wanted to put forward an idea where the user themselves can kind of decide that mapping in a way to in the YAML configuration file for the actual provider. They could in the spec part maybe put in a mapping to say kind of reconciliation finished, would send out an environment modified CD event or what have you. So yep, just wanted to mention that and see if there was any ideas on that.
I think that's a great idea, because the reason Flux events are the way they are is that they basically mirror Kubernetes events.
Yeah.
And for Kubernetes events, a reason is arbitrary. Now, we of course have some reasons or event reasons which are kind of set in stone. But
yeah, I was actually wondering if there was a list of them anywhere. We could have like a default as well.
no, because it's not an official API. Like, we try to not change them to not cause too much friction, but we don't necessarily want them to be a contract, I think, because that would kind of move away from the concept of Kubernetes events in general, which is like, well, you provide a reason and maybe you're nice and you provide kind of a static reason to reason about whatever is happening. But if you have some unique scenario which justifies an event being sent out, then you can just introduce that instead of having like a static list and then having to maintain it. It's kind of different than condition types, which are API based.
Yeah. Yep, that's kind of what we suspected anyway, was that Kubernetes events, they don't have any like set reasons. So there's not really, our first idea was to create kind of a table that would just be the mappings by default, but then we kind of quickly learned that there's not really any set in stone thing. So yeah, we wanted to do that implementation of the user kind of being able to decide the mapping. But that would include kind of changing the factory for the providers, kind of like how the factory at the moment has like URL and channel and like headers that don't get used or don't necessarily get used. So we're thinking, would it be okay to put in like a mapping variable into that? Would that change too much of Flux, or?
To my knowledge, the code in wait, just put up the code.
So internal code should be fine too.
Yeah, it's
Change.
internal code, so you're fine with changing signatures or whatever. We are only our own consumers, so if what you're trying to do justifies making the change, it should be fine.
Yeah. All right. Yep, that's something to bring up anyway. And also another thing for the actual receiver, which was, as I said, there wasn't many complaints about that or many thoughts about it. Apologies, sorry. Yeah, sorry, for the receiver, there wasn't many complaints about it. It seemed relatively well received. The idea of it was just the receiver would receive a specific CD event in the same way that GitHub can kind of filter through events as well, and it would trigger a reconciliation. But yep, so we wanted to kind of split that into a separate kind of RFC or pull request, the receiver and the provider, since one had less complaints than the other.
Yeah, I
So
think that makes sense.
That kind of requires a sponsor, right? For the RFC, kind of need a sponsor for the pull requests. So kind of wanted to bring that up.
I would be happy to sponsor, so you can put my name up. My GitHub is at Hideko, so it's that's fine.
Right, perfect.
One thing that comes to mind now that we're getting into the details of event reasons, I know that at present there is a filter to, I think, filter events based on messages. And I had a discussion with Stefan a while ago that it would be nice to also do event filtering on reasons. So that kind of hooks into your I need a reason and I need to map it to something else kind of thing. So if you keep that in mind while changing the signatures, then maybe you can do half of the work there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something to definitely keep in mind, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for putting the time in and the work.
Think that's everything that I kind of wanted to bring up for Flux CD events anyway. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. Do we have anything else on that topic or another topic? Is anyone come up with anything?
Yeah, not really a topic of discussion, but I finally was able to introduce or to write a PR to introduce new annotations types for the hand controller so that you're able to reset the failure counts instead of having to suspend and resume, and to introduce another annotation to be able to force a one-off upgrade or install. So that will be included in the upcoming release. Other than that, we are quite busy finishing the last bits across all of the sub-projects to be able to release. Well, next week it's not going to be, but hopefully the week after. So yeah, we're just wrapping up. I don't think there's much to mention.
I just want to mention that at Bug Scrub yesterday, we upgraded all of my clusters to Helm controller based on the main branch that was built. So I should be able to help if there's anything that you want me to test. Please let me know. But so far, so good.
Oh, you haven't run into a spurious. Well, I assume your charts are not, or your releases are not in a failed state.
Not
Sunny
yet.
and
Oh,
no,
yeah.
no. Sunny and I discovered a bug
Oh.
due to the cache sometimes syncing with a slight delay.
So this was discovered between today and yesterday, and I think we updated yesterday, right? So if you have any update that fails, it will keep on failing, retrying.
Oh, okay.
But not at all times. I have had successive runs, but the problem is basically that something you generally shouldn't do with a controller, but that we are doing is that we kind of do bookkeeping in the status, because we need to have a reference so that we can later confirm a release is still in sync. Now, if a failure happens and you requeue immediately, then at times the cache of the controller may not have been updated yet, and you're reconciling an object again with your old status. And because that status is being used to then further determine if the Helm storage is still okay, it may think that your Helm storage is out of sync. I have ideas about how to solve this, but that's the technical explanation behind it.
Cool. Okay, so if there's nothing else, we can close the meeting.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining us today. Have a great day.
Thank you so
See
much.
ya.
Bye.
Thank you.